here I am. Here we are in Italy, just outside of Florence, in a little town called Ponte, and we are gathered here with several artists to do some plein air painting, and it's all been hosted by Stefan Bauman. He is a world-renowned artist in his own right. If you look up plein air painting on the internet,
on Wikipedia,
you'll see his name right along such artists as Monet. That's right, folks. He's that good.
I'm that good, yes.
He put together this workshop to help others, much like myself, to learn and become stronger and get better at what we love to do. So,
this is Ken Brant, and he's an artist.
So this is the beautiful part of Ponte in Italy, and we got there just as the sun was rising in the morning. So I'd say we got there probably about 7-ish, somewhere around there, and that's we set up and we started painting, and the sun would be coming up from behind me. So when the sun does come up, it's actually going to be hitting the canvas, and I don't believe that caused really much of an issue at all. And so yeah, the canvas that I set up with is a that's a 9x12, and it's double oil primed on Belgian linen, and it's a smooth surface. I really like working with the smoother surface. The paint goes on really nice. I don't fight too much with it. The box that I'm using, the plein air box, that is a sienna, and that is the smaller. The sienna does come in different sizes, and that is a smaller size. But it really worked out great. I really love the box. I don't have any issues with the box. What I did have issues, and you can see it happening here. You notice how, as I'm hitting the canvas, the box is wiggling a little bit, and that is not the box's fault. That is the tripod that I was using. The tripod has the floating head on it, and that is really not a good head to use that's conducive to plein air painting. I would use some of the tripods come with these it's like a swivel ball, and you can tighten the swivel ball right in place and mount your camera or whatever it is that you're using right to that, and that does not move at all. Several of the people that were there had that on their tripod as opposed to what I had. As you can see here again, I had to support it a little bit, but that's not, that really wasn't a huge issue, but I didn't really care for it, and I didn't like having to hold the box. So anyway, as I'm painting there, I used my camera to frame the area that I was going to paint. So I had a general idea as to, which buildings I wanted to paint in there, and where I wanted to place the bridge that you see that I'm painting there in the middle of the painting. It's not quite the middle. It's above the center line and a little bit to the right. And that's kind of where I wanted that. At first I thought I was going to make the bridge my central focal point of the painting, but as it turned out, there was behind that bridge there's like a clock tower, and that when the sun comes up, because it's not you can't see the sunrise now. I think the sun is out, but it's coming up over a hill, so the sun was kind of hitting above the house, the roofs of the houses, and that it was slowly, angling down, it did hit that watchtower and really made that watchtower real bright. And that's where I decided to make that my focal point, because you could really see that. So that's what I concentrated on. For the sky, I was using ultramarine blue and a mixture of ultramarine blue with titanium white. And later on in the week, as I was plein air painting, I did change the blue that I was using for my sky, because generally what you want is you want to have a cooler color near the bottom of the skyline. As it gets closer to the Earth, the color blue gets a lot cooler. So ultramarine blue in the blue spectrum is a warmer blue. So what I ended up doing, not on this particular painting, but in later paintings, plein air paintings I started going with a cerulean blue towards the horizon line. It's a much cooler blue than ultramarine is. And you want that transition in the sky. So I didn't quite do that on this particular painting. It was early in the week. This was not the first plein air painting that I did. The very first one I did the night before this painting, I did not get that on video, but you will see that painting, because what I'm going to do with all of these paintings is I'm going to have a series called From Plein Air to Studio. And so you'll get to see all of the plein air paintings, and then we will continue working on them in the studio. Because when you are working on a plein air painting, the end result of a plein air painting is not to have a finished masterpiece by any means. There are people that do that. They paint a beautiful plein air painting, and you can consider it done to the point where you'd put a frame around it and hang it up. Some artists are very successful with that, but that is truly not what you are trying to achieve when you do a plein air painting. Basically, you're out there and you're trying to capture the essence of what you are seeing in front of you. So you're trying to capture the values, the temperature of the colors, color matching. You're trying to figure out placement of objects. Do you necessarily want that tree there? Is it better if the tree was somewhere else? So when you're done with your plein air painting, because we're out there on this particular plein air painting here, it was about 2 hours and 15 minutes that we were on this particular painting. And on average, I believe that was one of the longer plein air paintings that we were working on. Usually on average, we were between an hour and a half, and that was it. And that's a very short period of time to achieve a completed painting. So that's not your goal. Your goal is to have something that you're happy with, that captures the essence of what you're seeing, so you can later take that back into the studio and then either maybe make a bigger version of your plein air painting, or continue working on that particular canvas that you started and finish that up and make it a finished masterpiece. So all of these paintings here that I'm doing, some are going to look pretty close to completion, some are not. This one here, it did not turn out bad at all as far as where I ended up with it. But I had everything in there. I have all the buildings in there. I have the water in there. I have the mountain line in the behind the buildings in there. So I have a very good idea on where this particular painting is going to go. Also, as you can see here in the left-hand corner, I also have a photograph of the area that I was painting. So I have that as a reference to look at also, because I am not by any means a person that can remember in detail what I saw, weeks ago in front of me. So I definitely need a photograph. I would imagine anybody would. There are some people that don't. I'm not one of those people. So I got to have a photograph of what I was looking at to work from, so I can remember what it was that I was trying to paint. So yeah, you got your phone. Do not be afraid to use today's technology to help you in your painting process, but that is not cheating by any means. So don't feel like you need to, do what the old masters did. I'm sure if the old masters had any of the technology we have today, they would utilize that. There is no doubt in my mind. So you'll notice here I'm putting in the colors of the buildings, and that is a variation of yellow ochre, lemon yellow, and titanium white, and the cad red. And basically I just used a variation of those colors. Sometimes I add a little bit more white, sometimes I would add a little bit more red, sometimes I would add a little bit more yellow. You get the point. And so that's what the colors I was using, and I would be able to change how the buildings looked, because although the colors were very much the same, if you can see behind the box there, you can see the buildings. Like the one on the right is a yellow, and the one on the left is a yellow. But if you really notice there are like two different kinds of yellows. The one on the right's a little bit more orangey. So if I was painting that, I would add a little bit more red in my painting mixture for the building on the right, as opposed to the one on the left. So that's what I was trying to do with the buildings that I was painting in front of me there. And also the edges. Working on the edges of the building, so if you're using a very similar color, your edges would blend together. Now, when the buildings are far away like these were, that's probably not going to be too much of an issue. But when you're doing buildings that are closer together, and I did do some plein air painting in some later paintings in the week where the buildings were much closer and bigger and closer together. So you definitely want to be able to see the edges, but the colors were very similar. So we'll go over that on those paintings on how I achieved that look. And so what I had there when I was cleaning my brushes, I had a set of my favorite brushes I was using. I used mostly flats, I never really went anything bigger than, I think the largest flat that I had was a number 8, and I didn't go anything bigger than that to start with. So that's what I was trying to do. I would use a much larger brush to begin the painting, except for when I was drawing what I wanted to paint. I would use a smaller brush for that. But when I started painting, I would go with a much larger brush, and then I would slowly work in later with a smaller brush. And that's pretty much how anyone is paints. I have seen painters use a large brush to do the whole painting, and they do it very well. But you have to have a brush that has some bristles on it that are going to do what you want it to do. The flats, I think, are one of the better ones. They will, if it's a very good flat, expensive brush, make sure you spend a lot of money on your brushes, because that's what you're going to use to master your craft with. Yeah, so like a really good expensive flat, that'll keep a nice chiseled edge, and you can get some very nice line work with that, and it will also give you some very wide lines or areas of paint, so you can cover the canvas relatively quickly and at the same time do some detail work with them. So I do like using the flats just for that reason. The second favorite brush I like to use, probably the cat's tongue. I'd say the cat's tongue is a really nice brush, because it comes to a point, and you can do some really nice detail work with that. And I did not have a cat's tongue with me for any of these plein air paintings. That's unfortunate. I would have liked to have had one. I did end up buying one while we were there in Florence. We went to Zecchi's, a very old art shop in Florence, and I picked up a cat's tongue there. But again, I didn't use it. So, excuse my arm being in the way here. I did not realize that I was standing in front of the camera like that. But hey, that's how it is when sometimes when you're out there plein air painting. You're not, you're busy concentrating on your painting. You're not really paying attention to anything else. So, for the most part, this video is pretty clear on the canvas there, so you get a pretty good look, except for except for this point here. So, yeah. And so what I did for this particular video, like I said, we were out there for 2 hours and 15 minutes. I ended up doing a time lapse on this and slowing it down to a quarter of the time that we were actually worked on it. So a little bit, just slightly over a half hour. So as you can see here, for the water, what I ended up going in there with is I used the mixture of the ultramarine blue and the cad yellow and asphaltum to get the darker areas there on the the water. Here I am reloading my ultramarine blue. I used it up between this painting and the painting I did the night before. Putting in some more titanium white, and yeah, so I brought a bunch of different tubes of paint with me, and I had like a plastic case, that you can put nuts and bolts into. But the compartments were long enough to actually place tubes of paint in there, and it was one of the containers you can open up on either side, so I was able to put tubes of paint on one side of the box, close that lid, turn it over, open up the other lid, and put more tubes of paint in there. So it held quite a bit of paint, and I had that in my luggage, which I checked in to go under the plane, and there was no issues whatsoever flying with the oil paints. Nobody questioned my paints, and all my brushes and palette knives, those also went in my checked luggage, so those were under the plane. So again, there were no issues with that. I did end up taking my canvases, because these are wood canvases. I ended up taking about 10 of those out of the suitcase and putting in my carry-on, because the suitcase was overweight. So I did end up taking some of those out, putting in the carry-on, which again was not an issue going through the airport. They're just wood panels, so they didn't stop or question any of that. So you can see here for the water, I put in the titanium blue, the titanium white and ultramarine blue mixture for the sky reflection, and I have the asphaltum and the ultramarine blue mix for the darker areas, and then I just used the ultramarine blue and the cad yellow for the green for the grasses. The only green that I had pre-mixed in a tube for this whole plein air trip was the permanent yellow green. It's like a very it goes by different names. Sometimes it's called phthalo yellow green, but it's the same color as in most tubes is a permanent yellow green, or sometimes they just call it permanent green, but it's got a very yellowish hue to it, and that was the only green that I had that I would mix in with my green mixture. All the other greens that you see me painting from this point on in any of my plein air paintings that we did in Italy, they're all just a mixture of the blues and the yellows to make my whatever green I wanted. It worked out very well. I highly recommend that that's how you make your greens. You'll always have a different variation in greens if you do it that way. Because sometimes the greens out of the tube, they're not easy to work with, and some come out very flat, even though you might mix, have a couple different mixtures to mix with it. So the whites, if you use ivory black to change the value of it, all it ends up doing is just making it very flat. So I highly recommend that you mix your greens to get some, different variations in greens in your work. And I think you'll be happier with that. I know I am. For that mountainous regions in the background, always remember that in the distance, you will lose, as far as the light spectrum goes, you will lose the color yellow the farther away you go. So when you're doing any kind of hills or mountains or just anything in the distance that's land-wise, to give it some atmosphere, you definitely want to use less and less yellow the farther back you go. Start introducing your yellow as you get closer. So you'll notice on the foreground there in front of the buildings along the river, that green has a lot of yellow in it. That's kind of a very yellowish green. But the green in the back, and even the hills way in the farther back, there's like no yellow in there whatsoever. It's more of a purple color. So I'm really just sticking with just the reds and the blues at that point. For the roofs of the building, that was like a terra rosa color, and I kind of already knew this prior to going to Italy that I was going to need that color. That is one color that I did have already mixed, it's already pre-mixed in a tube. It's called terra rosa. I think if you were going to, if you did not have terra rosa and you wanted to make that same color that the roofs are there in Italy, then a burnt sienna and cad yellow light, that mixture would make that color for the roof. And I think it would be a very nice terra rosa. And then at that point I would maybe I wouldn't mix any blue in there, because that's going to go in with that'll start mixing with the green a little bit, and you'll end up with a more of a greenish hue. Probably I would add blue for the gray, for the shadow areas. Then that would probably be a nice mixture. But generally, all in all, I would just stick with the burnt sienna and the cad yellow. And so basically I was just putting in the different roof colors there. Had our paper towels with us, and one of the people we were painting with brought a trash bag, and so we just kind of a community trash bag, and we just put all our paper towels in there and took it all away with us. We pretty much made sure we left every area that we were at exactly how we found it. And while we're there, quite a lot of people would stop and look at what we were doing. People that So basically, at this point I was just kind of going over the lines and trying to work on some detail, putting in some distant windows in some of the buildings. I was pretty happy with the perspective, and one of the women there, her name is Donna, that was with our group. She was having some issues with perspective, and she would like me to do a video covering perspective. So I'll definitely be doing that. I'll definitely make sure I do. I cover how to do perspective, because in the future we're going to be doing a lot more buildings. I plan on doing a lot more plein air videos and cityscapes. So yeah, I think that's important to know. Generally, I usually don't have too many issues with perspective. A lot of people do, and it's something that can be easily learned, and you can become very accomplished in your paintings with perspective, and to the point where you almost don't even think about it. We did encounter a few situations where the buildings would have some alleyways and they would turn and there would be some tunnels and some staircases, and the angles that we were looking at were complicated to the point where making it look on the canvas the way we were seeing it in real life became extremely difficult. Even those that are very accomplished and skilled at painting perspective would have had some difficulty with some of the angles that we were looking at and the views. So yeah, and you'll see that in some later videos, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, I'll do that. I'll add some videos, and that will be something that we can do along the way with each of these plein air paintings. I'll make sure to touch upon one particular subject, and you know, on that plein air painting, and then on the next one, you know, like we'll do perspective, and then like on the one after that, maybe how to utilize your greens and get the best greens that you can in your painting. Another one, maybe we'll discuss water and how to achieve water reflections. So yeah, that's something that I can do on each of the videos, and that'll make I think that'll be a lot more interesting. And that way, for each and every painting, we're getting something out of it. I learn something each and every time I go out and paint. And if you're not learning something every time you go out and paint, then maybe you're just not doing something right. Because you know, if you're going out there and something's not right in your painting, and it's like that every single time, then you're not learning what you need to learn to progress and move on. That's why I highly recommend that you get some sort of coaching or instruction along the way. A lot of people do a lot of reading, watch a lot of videos. It's one thing to watch a video, it's another to actually go out and do what it is that you were seeing, you know, that you were learning. Yeah, you're not going to learn anything by just watching it. You have to actually do it. I myself, I have a coach on this particular workshop with Stefan Bauman. He's my coach, and I talk to him once a week. I show him what I'm doing, and we discuss, you know, how to make that better. That's what this workshop was all about. You know, we would go out and we'd paint an area, and we would tackle it, and then we would try to figure out the best way to achieve what it is we wanted to achieve in that painting. And with his coaching and his tutelage, I was able to accomplish all of that. So I highly recommend that you find someone like that. If Stefan Bauman is very, very busy, his student positions are full at the moment. So I myself, I do coaching as well. So just give me a call, and I'll put you in a slot, and we can go over your paintings and discuss, you know, discuss where you're at and make you a better painter. And we can both learn along the way as we're doing it. So definitely do that. At the end of this video, I'll put up what my number is. So you can call me, you can contact me through my email or my website. So either way, I highly recommend that you do that. If not myself, then with someone else, because I think it's necessary. It helps you move on. It helps you become better. So Tiger Woods is a professional golf player. He's at the top of his game, but he still has a coach. He still has somebody who helps him be where it's at. Because, you know, like just myself, you know, I'll get stuck in a habit, a bad habit, and all of a sudden I'll find myself falling back into these bad habits, and it's nice to have someone there saying, "Hey, what are you doing? You know better than that," and get me back on track. So everybody needs a coach. All professional athletes all have coaches, even though they're good at what they do. They still have someone there to help them. So don't think that that you can do that. You just need to do this on your own. You can, but I think you'll shave a lot of years off of how long it takes to become good. So I hope you enjoy these plein air videos. I'll be putting on quite a few of them. We were all over Ponticelli and Florence. We went up to Siena, did some painting there. There we found a little village up in the hills. We painted there, and so I did videos of all of that. And hopefully, you'll get something out of all these videos that I'll be posting on these different areas. It was we truly enjoyed being out there on the Italian countryside and doing the plein air painting. Funny thing is, we were the only ones doing any plein air painting. There was nobody else out there. So this movement, this plein air movement, it's huge in America, but that's it. Not anywhere else. We didn't see anybody else painting. It was just us, our group. That's not to say that people don't do it. We just didn't run into anybody. I thought maybe we would, but I didn't see anybody. So if you have any questions or comments, definitely make sure you leave those below in the comment section. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the bell notification icon. Make sure you subscribe, and that way you'll always know when I'm going to pop up a new video. Should be pretty consistent. Now that I'm back from Italy, I should have a plein air video at least going up once a week for sure. And then we'll have the series of going from plein air to studio after that. So yeah, got a lot of videos planned and some good information. So definitely stick around for that. And hey, until the next video. Arrivederci. Are you interested in learning how to oil paint? You don't know where to begin or start, and you need a little help along the way? Well, no matter what level of artistic ability you're at, whether you are capable of painting something along the lines like this, or you can't even draw a stick figure, give me a call at area code 607-481-9442. Let me coach you and teach you how to become the best artist that you can be. Let me take your paintings to the next level. Also, make sure you visit my website at www.kennethbrant.com and make sure you join my email newsletter. Again, that's area code 607-481-9442. and let me help you become the best you can be.